Welcome to the Irish Pagan School podcast. Your hosts are authors and co-founders of the Irish Pagan School here in County Waterford, Ireland, Laura O'Brien and John O'Sullivan. Fáilte.
Can I answer your questions about Irish paganism in 10 minutes or less? Well, thank you, Ives Fáilte. Hi, hello, and welcome. John O'Sullivan from the Irish Pagan School. And no, I'm going to get right to answering that one. Ní answer, not hard to say. No, I can't answer all of your questions about Irish paganism in 10 minutes, but I can point you to resources which will see you down the road of exploring that for yourself as you go. And that's what we do here in all of our free content on YouTube, in our podcast. Make sure you're on the mailing list for the blog content, the list of recommendations. We have a free kind of course, really, a 3 pillars to paganism that you can sign up for, all of which is designed to take you through an understanding. But it's always the bare minimum. It's scratching the surface. It's getting you on the road, on the pathway that myself and my partner Laura have been building for years. And it has been years. The Irish Pagan School has existed since 2017, but Laura has been working in this area for decades before that. Me, I'm a little bit behind the times, catching up, coming out of my own kind of stuff, but I've still been actively working in this education section for 5 plus. Well, actually, no, I was teaching in 2017 as well when we launched the Irish Pagan School. So yeah, we have actually been at this for quite some time. That does mean there's a lot of content that we want to say. There's a lot of things interwoven and interconnected in the lessons that we give or the insights that we try and share. And yeah, I am long-winded. I do talk quite a bit. If you've shared our social sessions, our second Saturday socials, which is just a hangout with our community, it's not work, it's not teaching, it's literally just being around each other as Irish pagan people from the Irish Pagan School. And it's always great. But I always make that quip or that joke at the start. It's not a live teaching session. It's not John talks for 2 hours, because John can talk for 2 hours. If you've taken any of my classes at the Irish Pagan School, I have to go back and re-record some of them, because feedback I've gotten is there's so much information given in 2 hours nonstop. And so I need to get better at like sectioning out and just recording in independent sections for processing needs. Because, I want to take on board that feedback. I want to make it more accessible wherever I can. But one thing that really struck me about this long-winded, talky kind of stuff is an aspect of Irish culture that goes back to our mythological circumstance, and it is the concept of ravescale, which in Irish, which is what they're called in Irish, but they're translated. The best translation really is before stories. And the fact that all of our sagas, like the Tán in the Ulster cycle, the Argabal Éireann, all through the Fenian cycle, there are so many additional stories that are core to understanding the main saga, but aren't actually part of the main saga. And that's where we get these rave scales, these tangential, interlinked tales, which provide deeper context, deeper understanding to what's actually going on here. And we see that time and again, like in the Tombo Cúailnge, we have the Cattle Raid Cúailnge. It's this fight between the Maeve and Concover, as in Connacht and Ulster, over, well, the early translations of that give it that it's Maeve's jealousy, but when we look at it in a better context, a more educated context, it is about power structures and Maeve being undermined by her husband by claiming to have more wealth than her, which then forces her into a place she has to keep parity, not just because she wants to, not just because she's envious, it's because under the legal rights of law, she would lose her opinion, her right to rule her, because she would no longer be in what's known as a marriage of equals or a union of equals. So that would mean that his opinion on everything would be of literal more value than hers because he has more value. So this whole thing about the bulls is not just she wanted to have the bull and was told no and had a strop. But the extra thing about the bulls, the Fionvanach and the Dún Cúailnge, so that's the white bull is the Fionvanach, the Dún Cúailnge is the brown bull. There's a pre-story about who they are. And a pre-story is the quarrel of the two swineherds or pig keepers, where these two ancient individuals, these two ancient druids, get into a scrap over stuff. And then as they they die, but then they're reborn. They shift and they change and they transmigrate into their next life. But every single time they do that, they transmigrate into their new life in a different form down through the generations, and they fight again. They come back as stags. They come back as hawks in the air. They come back as pecht or monsters or lizards or dragons, depending on which way you want to translate that. And so it is actually their transmigrated spirits again, which come back into the Fionn Vanach and the Dun Coolne. So when we get to the crux of this crescendo moment within the Tombo Coolne, the cattle raid of Cooley, as much as there's the conflicts happening between Maeve and Cloncover or between Cuchulainn and the warriors at the fort and all the rest of it, there is a side battle which happens between the bulls, and the Dun Coolne like spears the Fionn Vanach and tears him apart, and then runs back to home up in the Cooley Peninsula, shaking the parts of the Fionn Vanach all over Ireland. And so there are places still now named for the parts of the bull that fell off his horns in that location. The ford of I think it's the Bull Rump, or there's a whole lot of places, and I don't have all of them in my mind, but it is really, really great to understand that there is a lot of extra value to be had by looking at those other tangential stories, by taking the core narrative for a walk, by going around and saying, okay, well, what else is happening here culturally? What else is going on? What more can I understand from this perspective? So it's not a matter of give me the direct answer so I can have my answer and I can be done and gone. Sometimes that's needed, absolutely. And if a direct answer is warranted, I can be rather abrupt. But at other times, it's less about the answer that I could give you and more about the answer that you can find for yourself by going through the narrative, by going through the experience, by, as we say in the Irish Pagan School, doing the work. So I could answer all your questions from my experience as an Irish person, or my experience as, a cis white het male person, or a person who grew up in Ireland, or I can give you so many different perspectives of who and how I am. Someone who's been honoring and worshiping the Dagda in a daily practice for years now. I could give you answers, but all of those answers are going to be my answers from my research, from my work, from my perspective, entrenched in the culture, the ethnicity, and everything else that I come up in. So, of course, it's going to differ from your answers. It should differ from your answers, because then we get real value from shared perspectives or sharing different perspectives. Because that's when we can really say, okay, well, I see it from this point of view, you see it from that point of view. Where do we have stuff in common? Where do we have stuff different? And if that can be approached with compassion and respect, then there's so much growth and learning that can be done. So, can I teach you about Irish paganism in 10 minutes? No. But in some way, maybe I'm honoring this culture of poetic narrative storytelling and rave scales or side tangential learning that is important to get a broader scope than just get the answer you're looking for in that 1 minute. So, if you'd want to take the steps down the pathway to Irish paganism, if you want to move along with this doing the work for yourself, go to irishpagan.school/free. Here's one of the free resources that you can get there. If you want to take the 3-day challenge, there's irishpagan.school/3, the number 3 days. And so we'll send you an email about the structures, these 3 pillars about Irish paganism. If you want to know about ancestral work, really, or exploring your origins or your roots, we've got resources there as well. irishpagan.school/roots. All of these things allow you to sign up to our mailing list, which means that you're going to get more content down the line. You get notified whenever videos drop or podcasts go out or anything like that at all, whenever classes come along, or whenever those second Saturday social sessions pop up. But straight away, from the moment you sign up, you'll be given resources that can take you along the work if you're willing to do it. So until next time, look after yourself, take care, August Slán. Goodbye.
If you enjoyed this podcast, please leave us a positive review in your podcast listener. Then head over to irishpaganschool.com and enroll in one of our free or paid courses. Slán go fóill, and we will see you next time.